In this video, we'll look at operators in R. Operators in R are similar to other C-based languages like C, C++, Java, JavaScript, C#. There's really just a few differences. The biggest difference is probably this first one here on the assignment operator. In most languages, when you want to assign a value to a variable, you put the value you want to assign on the right side and the variable on the left side. And what's in between is an equal sign. So let a equal 1. And that does work in R. You can see that when I send that variable to the console, I get the value 1. But that's unfortunately not typically the way we do it in R. We use this left arrow assignment to assign values to variables. And this left arrow does the exact same thing as the equals sign we saw up here. But this is the convention in R. And it looks a little weird, but you have to get used to it. It's used everywhere in R. And that's the proper way to put a value inside a variable. One interesting point about this arrow is that there's another one, the right arrow, that goes the opposite direction. If I want to put a value in a variable like this one here, B, I can do it the same way in the opposite direction. And this isn't used anywhere nearly as much as the left arrow, but it is used sometimes. As for the arithmetic operators, most of these are just like any other language: plus, minus, multiplication, division. The exponent operator, a to the power of b, is also shared with other languages. The quotient and the remainder are a little bit different. I have a percent divided by percent, and the double percents for the remainder. This is also a difference with some languages. The comparison operator in an R is a double equals, not a single equals. And this one is probably, from amongst this list here, this is the hardest one to remember and get used to. This catches a lot of people, even experienced R programmers. If I want to say, does A equal B, I have to use a double equals. For the not equals, it's just a exclamation equals or bang equals, greater than, less than. These are all fairly self-explanatory and similar to other languages. The logical operators are a little bit different. I have two different kinds of AND operators and two different kinds of OR operators. This element-wise, the single ampersand AND operator will work with a vector. This double ampersand is expecting a single value on both sides. So this is for vectors and this is for single values. And the same applies to the logical OR. This expects single values, and this can be used with a vector. The not operator is just a bang or exclamation to negate that item. And of course, all these operators work with vectors. So if I assign vectors to these two variables, I can use just about any of the operators that we just discussed up here with these vectors. So meaning that all operators in R are vectorized, which is a big, big difference from most other languages. And I want to discuss something kind of interesting about this comparison operator. First, I'll assign some true-false values to these two variables, x and y, and then notice that when I compare these two vectors, I get a vector of comparisons. So when you compare these two vectors, it results in a true. These are both true. This is false, this is false, and then this is also true, meaning Is x equal to y? Yes, they're both false, so that will return a true here. And this can sometimes be a problem if you're working with conditionals. Inside a conditional, if you have vector values, returning a vector of comparisons like this can give you errors. And so what R has is these two functions, all and any, to help consolidate the comparison. So if I say all x equals all y, is essentially what this is saying, that is false. And if I say, is any x equal to any y, well, that is true. Some of them match. This one matches, but not all of them match. And these are very useful functions. You'll find yourself using them pretty frequently. Another interesting function is this sequence function. This allows you to create a sequence of values. In this case, I'm creating a sequence of integers from 1 to 5, and you can see those here. I could have changed this to 1 to 10, or really anything I want, and that's quite useful. Sometimes if you're looping over something, you can create a sequence to help you get through the items in that loop. And there's a shortcut for that sequence function, which is this colon operator here. And then one more operator I want to look at, this in, %. This means, does this value, is it in any of these values? And this is used to detect whether or not a value is inside a vector. So is the value 3 in the sequence 1 through 5? And of course, that's going to come back as true. And is the value 7 in the sequence 1 through 5? And that will come back as false. And so this is quite a useful operator. This %in % gets used quite a bit in R. So keep that one in mind when you're programming. The key points from this lesson are that operators in R are similar to other C-based languages. The big difference is that in R, operators are almost all vectorized. To help deal with the vectors and conditionals, we can use the all, any, and in operators. And that concludes the lesson on operators in R.